Well, welcome, Facebook Live. My name is Brad Bodis. This is the Bond and Bodis Law Office's Facebook Live, and we appreciate you joining us this week. As you know, we've been doing these for the last several months, and we try to address a different topic each week that might be important to our viewers. We are very fortunate today to have my good friend and law partner of many, many years, Ron Sixtus. Ron, welcome to Facebook Live.
Thanks for having me, Brad. I can't get over your glasses. I like the fancy glasses. But no, I appreciate being here with you.
Ron may be humble today, but Ron is, he's practiced law with our firm for well over 25 years now. He is a former JAG officer. He is a veteran and brings a lot to our practice. As most of y'all know, our practice primarily works with people with money problems. We help people with bankruptcy-related issues. Ron came into our firm straight from the Army and became, in a short period of time, one of the top bankruptcy attorneys in really the southeastern United States. Ron, I believe you're still one of only a few board-certified consumer bankruptcy attorneys in the state of Alabama. But after mastering bankruptcy, he kind of returned to his roots and now does a lot of work helping veterans, specifically with VA disability claims, which we're going to talk about today. Ron is also one of the top security clearance attorneys in the country. And our viewers should know that Ron handles both VA disability claims and security clearance claims on a national basis.
Brad, you make me sound way better than I am. But I did want to say, now, how crazy is this? In my late 50s now, I've had two professional jobs, the Army and with Bond and Bodis, with you specifically. So, I'm all about longevity and loyalty, I guess.
Well, and it's much appreciated. And our clients should know that Ron feels the same way about loyalty to our clients. Ron, I'm going to be serious here at the beginning because I am very proud of you and your accomplishments and your family. Ron and his beautiful wife, Patty, you may remember Patty Sixtus, joined us with an episode just a couple of months back where we talked about a nonprofit that she started in the Huntsville area with Ron's help. Ron and Patty have three boys. Jack, Tom, Sam, all doing very well. Very proud of you and your family, Ron. But today we are going to talk to veterans. Veterans that you and I both care a lot about, and specifically veterans that received some type of injury or had some sort of impairment that occurred during their military service, for which they might be entitled to benefits. Ron, I know you are passionate about the work you do for veterans. Maybe you can elaborate upon your involvement in this area and what causes you to be passionate about this work.
Sure, Brad. Well, so when I was in the Army, I was a prosecutor for a period of time at Fort Bliss, Texas. Fort Bliss gets kind of a bad rap, but I loved it. I mean, I was fortunate to be in a city. That's where I met, as you said, my lovely wife, Patty. She was working there. And it could have been a lot worse as far as where I was stationed. So I was very happy to be there. So I was a prosecutor at Fort Bliss. And one of my jobs back then, the Army, we were responsible for working with security clearances or, pulling soldiers and officers clearances. So I did that. And then from there, I moved to Fort McClellan, Alabama, where my office handled all the criminal defense. I was a senior defense counsel there. So I had a staff of attorneys and staff personnel that we handled the criminal defense for soldiers and officers at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and Redstone. So I've just kind of kept my hands in it, kind of the crazy thing. And I'm sure a lot of people say this when they're in the service. So when I was in the service, and I'm sure I've mentioned this to you in the past, that when I was in the service, I was looking at my civilian counterparts thinking, man, I wish I could have, I wish I was doing that instead of being in the service. But not a day has gone by in the last, 25 plus years that probably 2 to 3 times a week, I haven't been paid back for my service in some way, whether it's a thank you, whether it's a discount somewhere, whether it's some benefit that occurs to me, not always monetarily, but there's some payback. So just kind of looking back at it, I mean, it's a way for me to kind of give back where I can, something I know. So, I've kept my hand in security clearances all these years because I used to defend folks in the service when I was in Alabama at Fort McClellan, when people were losing their clearances or soldiers or officers. And then same thing with VA. So because I was a veteran, or I am a veteran, because I was in the service, I just kind of had a conceptual understanding of VA disability claims. And, for a lot of veterans out there, once you leave service, I mean, it stays an important part of you. And certainly if you had an injury or a disability that came from your service, you want to be compensated. And that's what the VA, system is set up for. So that's kind of a long way of saying that I've kind of kept my hands in it all these years.
Well, and I'm thankful to you for that. And I just, all of our veterans that are watching, I'm very thankful for all of you and your service to our country. We wouldn't be where we are today without your sacrifice, and we appreciate it. So, Ron, the process of applying for VA disability benefits is never a very simple one, but COVID has kind of frustrated things even more. Tell me, just give me an overview of exactly how the VA benefit system works on a general basis, and how one applies for benefits.
Sure. And, frankly, that's, there's so much stuff involved with the VA, from a home loan. Most veterans know this. If you're a veteran with an honorable discharge, it has to be honorable, and under some circumstances, general under honorable conditions, as long as there's no flag on that discharge. But if you have an honorable discharge, you can get a home loan, no money down, no, what's that insurance you have to pay? The
gap insurance.
Yeah, whatever that's called. You don't have to pay that. No money down, up to $417,000. Super attractive, right? Another benefit that my wife and I took advantage of about 2 years ago, Disney World. If you're a veteran, not retired, because I am not retired, so I just served my 4 years that I owed the Army, and then I got my honorable discharge. Disney World, we were able to stay on site on the monorail for whatever your rank was at the time. I think as a captain, I paid $150 a night, which was highway robbery, right? That's a steal on the monorail. So there's just a lot of benefits. So what we're talking about today is VA disability compensation and pensions, VA pensions. So 2 things, starting with the pension, let's talk about that. That's the less attractive one. So if you're a veteran, you really want the VA disability if you have a bona fide disability. But the pension is a program for, it benefits veterans who are lower on the socioeconomic scale. So for instance, if you're a veteran and you're not making much and you don't have a great net worth, this is kind of the kicker. If you're 65 or older or disabled, as long as you served during a time of war, you didn't have to be at war, you didn't have to be deployed or anything like that. And the timing kind of depends on whether it was pre-September 1980 or after. You may qualify for a pension. So for a lot of our older veterans, especially folks with not a great deal of means or net worth, it's really something to look at. So that's one aspect.
And then the second is VA benefits. And in order to be entitled to VA disability benefits, there had to be some service-related injury. Is that correct?
Sure. All right. So VA disability compensation. So that's kind of how they refer to it: VA disability compensation and pension. We've already kind of covered the pension. And let me go back to the pension for a minute. Okay. I don't like the there's kind of a big deal as of about 2 years ago. It used to be that elder law lawyers would talk to veterans about transferring assets. There's now a 3-year look back period. And in our bankruptcy practice, when you hear about the transfer of assets, it makes me very queasy. Agreed?
Sure, absolutely.
So same context in bankruptcy as it is in VA. Now, just like with Medicare planning for elder law clients, they have that same problem. So I just don't like the transfer of assets. But for veterans that are in the lower socioeconomic scale, and one thing that I am passionate about is helping homeless veterans. It's something I do here through the Madison County Volunteer Lawyer Program, and been doing that a number of years. That to me is really, I'm just really passionate about it, because homeless veterans, make up a disproportionate number of homelessness in our country, which is crazy. But I see how it could happen. When I was getting out talking to you about a job, you see how that can happen. As much as our country talks about hire a veteran, at least when I was in, that wasn't a common thing, because people think that skill set doesn't really transfer. But be that as it may, for homeless veterans especially, this pension is really attractive. And if you just do a search of that, it's as far as the wartime and the disability and the age, it's really something that's attractive. Now, so VA disability compensation, that's the more attractive aspect, because it's higher. It's a higher rate of pay. And there are also certain employment benefits. If you're a 30% or better or more rated disabled veteran, you have a higher preference for government jobs, which, I'm talking to you from Huntsville, which, we're the mecca of government, and or one of the meccas. So government hiring is really attractive if you're 30% or more disabled. So VA disability compensation, in a nutshell, and I always tell folks, remember this and focus on this when you're submitting your VA claim, because I like to kind of dumb things down for my own purposes and keep it simple. So for me, you have to have a current disability. Okay, so you can't have had something happen long ago and now you're fine and you want a VA disability claim. So you have to have a current disability, and it's got to be related to your service. That's the service connection prong. So it's really that simple. So if I now had a knee problem from a run I had while I was in service, that arguably, as long as I have a current disability related to my service, I could put in for a claim. Now, whether I get one or not is a different analysis, but that's it in a nutshell. And I always tell veterans, keep that in front of you, current disability related to your service. Those two things, that gets you a long way down the road.
Do veterans need the assistance of an attorney when they actually file the claim, Ron? Is it important to have an attorney involved at that point?
No, not at all. And in fact, I don't really like to do it at that point. And I always tell veterans, try it yourself, but make your claim good on the front end. So a couple of points to that. VA has a duty to assist veterans. It's a codified and codified by law, by case law, a duty to assist veterans, in developing their claim. But let's be candid, that only goes so far. So if you're going to file a claim, you do it yourself. You use the 526 EZ form. And I tell folks, go in with your best foot forward. So for instance, just let's use an example.
Ron, let me ask for a second. The form you just referred to, where can people access that form?
Go to the VA site, va.gov.
Okay.
So I'll talk about this point because this is important. I don't want to forget this. And we'll talk about how to make the claim good from the outset. But when you submit the form, here's what I tell folks. I've had a number of clients and even our own stuff. We send something to the VA, they never get it, right? We never got your claim. We never got this or that. So what I always tell veterans, first of all, you make a copy of the signed document you're sending to the VA. Secondly, you make sure you mail it by certified mail return receipt. And you can also send it, there's another way to send it to the Evidence Intake Center. You can do that by fax, but make sure you have proof of the fax, confirmation of the fax. And I cannot tell you what that will save you in the long run. Because if you don't have proof that you sent it and you're told you didn't send it, it's game over. So it's a really big deal. Secondly, I also tell folks, everything you get from the VA, and a lot of this stuff is common sense, but if people will do this, if veterans will do this, it'll make it a lot better down the road. Get a decent sized box, make a copy of everything you send, just jam it in that box. Everything you get from the VA should go in that box. The green card should go in that box, showing that proof of what you sent. It will become very important down the road. So as far as the claim, so you say, or I say, let's say I have a knee claim. So let's say I have a right knee claim. So I have an example. So I was running a lot more back then than I do now. And sometimes I wish I could go back to those days because it was during the very long lunch hour. And I'm not a great runner, as you know, but when I look back at that, I would long for a 2-hour run at lunch. But so I was running one time, and we were about an hour outside of the fort, and I fell, scraped my knee really badly, and I have a scar still there. So there is such a disability as a scar. If it had caused me a problem, so what I would say, and I never went to sick call, I never went there to complain about it, but I could find the couple of guys that I was running with, and I could tell them, hey, write a letter. Remember, we were running, I fell. Remember, I complained about it. Remember, it bled. I kept telling you it was bleeding like 2 weeks out, knee problem. I couldn't do PT. Those are called buddy statements. And if you get nothing else from today's conversation, that's a way to prove service connection, because the biggest hurdle, so remember what I said, to have a VA disability claim, you have to have a current disability, a current problem. It's got to be related to your service. The biggest area, and I may be getting ahead of us here a little bit, Brad, but I'll talk about this. The biggest area where veterans fall down on their claim is the VA says, yeah, you may have this current disability, your right knee problem, but it wasn't related to your service. Well, how do you prove that if you don't have medical records, right? If you don't have sick call, because I never went on sick call. So these buddy statements are everything. It's a contemporaneous, well, not a contemporaneous statement. It's a statement that happened, that shows at the time, this is what happened. Detail is your friend here. So that would be really helpful, to prove service connection. The other thing I tell any folks who aren't yet veterans, but current active duty service members, if I could go back, we both know this very good trial lawyer who said, I don't know if he ever said this to you, he said it to me, if you do not capture evidence when you see it, it will disappear forever. That always stayed with me because I have two very memorable cases where I saw the evidence, I did not collect it when it was there, and it haunted me in both cases. Fortunately, they worked out, but it would have been even better had I had those two pieces. So if you're an active duty service member, if you go on sick call for anything, I would get a copy of those records same moment. And, even when you're on active duty, keep a box somewhere, send it home to your parents' house, keep it there. It will be important to you down the road. Now that takes a lot of foresight, and the other problem is kind of talking about service connection. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, Brad, and I hope that's okay.
It is. But, it occurred to me, you and I are a little bit older, but current GIs could probably do this with email. Just make a record of what happened. Yeah, I got hurt today. I tripped while I was running and my knee was bloodied up pretty well.
Yes, but that's only their word. So what external document do you need or proof do you need to say, sure, you're the one saying it, but the VA will say there's no service connection, you're fine, or, it didn't happen on your active duty service. And remember, it has to be active duty service. So it can't be like, my middle son, Tom, is in the Army Reserve. So his drill weekends don't count. The only thing that counts for him is active duty service for training when he was in basic training and on his 2-week annual training. But drill weekends don't count. That's different, much different for active duty service members. You're a service member. When you're on active duty orders, it's 24/7. So I don't care if you were raking leaves on a Saturday. I don't care if you were throwing a Nerf football around with your kid and you fell. That's all service connected. It's all active duty. It doesn't have to be during some strenuous, military activity or something like that. So whatever it is, if you were on leave skiing, great, that's active duty. So that applies, the timing of that is important. But going
I'm sure
back,
a lot of people don't realize that while you're on leave.
Whatever you're doing, I've had a lot of veterans and soldiers at the time that we had issues. I don't know if you know this, the Army has a pretty vast powerlifting team. How's that for your training and your job duty? People would get hurt that way. That's all service connected. It's all, believe me, I wish I had that skill set when I was back in. But in any event, playing basketball, a lot of teams have, all post or all Army basketball teams, and that's really all they do is travel. But in any event, so the service connection, that's where it's really important. So get proof. So getting medical records, and here's kind of the tricky part. So as you know, my son Tom went through basic training where he's, lower than dirt, and that's kind of the way it is. So Tom had hurt his hip at one point, but did not go on sick call. Well, why wouldn't he go on sick call? Because you don't want to get recycled and have to train over and lose out on your class, and you want to get the heck out of there as fast as humanly possible. You don't want to hang around. So, and that's kind of the lament. If you're, in my experience, and I see this a lot with the veterans claims that I do handle, if someone was lower enlisted, maybe E1, E2, and they hurt themselves, believe me, they're not a colonel saying, hey, I need the day off. I'm a little hurt. I'm going to sit and watch TV. And no, they're in the barracks cleaning the latrine and that type of stuff. And it's not easy duty. So you're better off just working through it and not going on sick call. So really, where does that service connection come from if you don't have the military or the medical records? And they're called, as an aside, service medical records. You'll see the reference or the acronym SMR. If it's not in your service medical records, you've got to come up with proof in some extrinsic way, and that's where the buddy statements, are very important.
Ron, I want to just kind of give a summary of where we're going to go here. You've explained what is necessary in order to qualify for VA disability benefits. I want to talk about the reason claims are rejected, the top reasons. I want to talk about the type of discharge you receive and why that's important and how that impacts eligibility. And most importantly, I want to talk about options veterans have if their claims are rejected. And we're going to get into those three areas. But for our viewers, you may have tuned in late. My name is Brad Bodis. My partner, Ron Sixtus, is joining us today. The Bond and Bodis Law Offices, we help people with money problems. A lot of you have lost jobs. We know a lot of businesses have shut down. We know a lot of you are unable to make your mortgage or rent payments right now. And we want you to know that at this point, we are offering absolutely free initial consultations, and we're doing them from the comfort of your own home or your office, if that's good for you. We want you to feel safe, but we want you to be proactive. We want you to reach out and get advice at this point. Just because you call one of us doesn't mean that you need to file bankruptcy. In fact, we'll talk to you about non-bankruptcy options, but please be proactive. Our offices are located throughout Alabama. In fact, Ron Sixtus is sitting in our office in Huntsville today. I'm in Birmingham.
I'm in Coleman, Brad.
You're in Coleman today.
I'm in our Coleman office.
So we have offices in Coleman, Decatur, Huntsville, we're in Florence, we're in Haleyville, we're in Gaston and Anniston, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and in Opelika. We're also throughout Mississippi, and we're in the Knoxville area in Tennessee. Again, if you need help, reach out for a free consultation today. We have board certified attorneys. We have been doing this work for over 30 years, and it's not going to hurt to reach out and get help. We have people on call to answer your phone calls now if you want to reach out and ask for help, or if it's easier right now, go to our website. We have a lot more information, a lot of interesting blog posts on our website, and there's a form there you can fill out asking that somebody contact you to arrange for an appointment. But today we're here to talk specifically about our veterans. And my partner, Ron Sixtus, who is a veteran and a former JAG officer, is going to share his expertise on important issues that impact veterans. In addition to being a great attorney, Ron is also an author. Ron has written a book on bankruptcy, also on security clearance issues. We have information about both of those books on the screen. We will have links on our Facebook pages. And you can also just go to Amazon and search Sixtus, Sykkstus, and you'll find links to both of the books. Great
Brad, let me share the dirty secret, though.
Great information.
My real dream would be if I were a novelist, right? And I knew you solely on a social basis because I was so famous with my novels. But alas, that's not the case.
Yeah, for the books that you have written are chock full of information. And also, I want to give a plug. Ron does, and has been doing for quite some time, a great podcast called Next Lawyer Up. Getting very close to episode number 100. But the best episode yet, Ron, and I've listened to them all, is clearly episode number 1, because the guest you had was just fantastic. Last name of Bodis, I believe.
I agree, Brad. And as we talked about, it was a lot of fun. It was just, and it's, on the podcast, I don't really like to talk about law per se. I mean, we get enough law in our daily lives where we are drinking it from a fire hose, but it's really lawyers in the law. And that's how it's at Apple iTunes, Player FM, and Stitcher. And that's how some of those entities refer to it, lawyers in the law. So just kind of how you got to where you are. But I agree, episode 1 is certainly one of my favorites.
Well, I do encourage our viewers, go to our website and all of the podcasts there, including conversations with some of the top attorneys throughout the country, are featured on our website. Ron does a great job with the podcast, but it was a lot of fun. Episode 1, Ron and I both share a background. We both grew up in the Chicago area. Our families have grown, our kids have grown up together, and a lot of great stories that we were able to share that podcast. And it was right on the cusp of the Chicago Cubs finally winning that World Series that took forever, Ron.
The glory days, right? That was glorious.
Well, Ron, we do have some questions that are coming in, and I want to touch upon some of these issues that are important to our veterans that are seeking compensation for injuries they sustained while on active duty. So let's just start at the beginning here. You've told our viewers that if they're a veteran and if they have an injury that's compensable, they probably don't need an attorney to file the initial claim. They want to do it right. You've provided some information. But if their claim is rejected, what can they do?
Sure. So there's 2 systems. These are now, we're talking VA disability claims, the disability compensation, the more attractive of the 2 versus the pension claim, which is important, but it's not as much money as VA disability compensation. So if your claim is denied, first of all, never, ever miss a VA deadline. If you miss it, the VA will use it against you forever. And unfortunately, there's a concept called the statute of limitations. How long do you have to bring an action? So for instance, if you hit me in a car accident, I've got 2 years in the state of Alabama to sue you. The VA cuts that down to a year. And then beyond that, the time even goes down in some respects to 60 days here, 120 days here, depending on what the aspect of the claim is. So it happens fast. So, make sure you never miss a deadline. I mean, be aware of the deadline date, and I don't like to play with that. So let's be comfortably on the good side of the deadline. whatever you're submitting to the VA, again, send it by certified mail, return receipt, so you have proof that they received it, someone signed for it. And I would do it also with a confirmed fax. So there are two.
Just to be clear, and I want to make sure I understand, the statute of limitations, this pertains to the appeal time, not the original claim for disability, correct?
That's right. That's right. Though there is a presumption in VA law that if you file a claim within a year of leaving the service, there's a presumption that that is a disability claim. The longer you wait, the VA is going to use that against you. Hey, you had 40 years as a postal worker, and now you're claiming a VA disability claim that happened 40 years ago. I mean, that's more problematic. So the sooner the better. And in fact, to that point, I was talking about if you're an active duty service member, if you're getting off of active duty, you need to make sure you report in any, conceivable issue you've had. That'll be important. Make sure that's documented. But so when you file the claim, kind of going back to that, you want to put your claim in the best possible light, get your buddy statements, medical records if you can get them. If you can get your physician to write a letter that says, it's more like I know Brad Bodis and I know he incurred this injury during active duty, looked at all his records, and it's more likely than not that it occurred on his active duty service. That's gold. So you want to submit that with the claim on the front end. Now, when a claim is denied, and unfortunately, that's why I'm in this business, they're denied a lot. Now you can appeal. So there are two appeal avenues. The old process that ended in early 2019 is called the legacy appeal process. And there are probably backlog, maybe 1 million claims nationwide, maybe a little less than 1 million claims in the legacy system that are still in the legacy system. I was okay with the legacy system. It had some problems, but you had another pretty fast statute of limitations, which I won't bore you with. But as of, I think it's February 2019 and later, any claim filed and any denial after that, you're in this new modernized appeal system. You have some avenues you can travel on what to do. Do you appeal directly to the Board of Veterans Appeals? Do you file a supplemental claim and try to get more evidence? That's probably what I'm inclined, without knowing more and without giving legal advice right now. I'm inclined to tell folks, stay in that supplemental claim, get additional evidence, because obviously the VA, if you're denied, they think there's something wrong with your claim. Remember, current disability related to your service. And the hook, you probably do have a current disability, because if you don't, that's easy to knock out. But if it's related to your service, that's usually where the issues are, that it was not service connected, says the VA. What do you got to do to prove service connection? So you need to get that hook. Why was it incurred? How can you show it was incurred during your service? So, so that's kind of how it starts. It's a long process. Every veteran knows certainly the World War II phrase snafu, which is, situation normal, all fouled up. It's now a common word, but, and also hurry up and wait. So that's what I tell all my veterans. It is a slow as molasses process. I tell veterans from the first time I see them, it's several years. If you're going to get money and you're not now, plan on several years. I have a lot of veterans that complain, and rightfully so, but kind of my theory is, listen, years are going to pass if you're on the good side of the earth, years are going to go by one way or the other. So stay in the process. Just make sure you never miss a deadline.
Well, and the important thing is, the sooner you get started, the sooner you're going to get the results and hopefully the benefits that you're entitled to. I just want to share with our viewers, I asked about the time period for actually making the initial claim, and you responded there's not. It's, of course, best to make it as soon as you can. But my personal experience, my father served during World War II. He was a Navy Seabee, and fortunately lived for many, many years after his military service. Passed away after age 80. But while Dad was active as a Seabee, he was exposed. He witnessed some of the nuclear testing. And with Ron's assistance, with your assistance, thank you, Ron. After Dad passed away, we were able to make a claim that was paid for exposure that my dad had to radiation that affected his blood, and actually it was one of the causes of his death at the age of 80 plus. So thank you for that, Ron. And our veterans need to know out there, if you do have a disability, and it is service related, it's not too late to start the process. But when you do start the process, Ron, that's when the deadlines are important, correct?
That's right. Once you start the process. Yeah, and I didn't mention that about your dad. I was going to let you do that. But yeah, very interesting. And, had your dad filed a claim, that, that's where the VA kind of evolves, just like it has with Agent Orange. There's a lot of maladies that come up later that, medical science now determines it was related to a certain event. Just like with your dad, had your dad filed a claim back in 1946, 47, 48, nothing's there, right? And probably till we did file the claim, there was probably nothing there, or we maybe we could have done it a couple of years prior, but not much earlier. So, but yeah, it was interesting. I'm glad that worked out for your mom.
Ron, and the truth is, a lot of veterans are rightfully very proud of their service, and I imagine a lot are hesitant to make claims for service-related disability. I know my father probably would have been, but what the claim did is it greatly helped my mom, who survived my father. And I think that's something for our veterans to keep in mind. These benefits are for you, but they're and for your service to our country, but just as importantly, they're there for your spouse, your family members.
And to that point, Brad, that's one thing that does drive me nuts about the VA system. For all these veterans, and we'll talk in a minute about discharges, but, these veterans have honorable discharges. They serve their country, some for a very long time, some for a short period of time. But it's service to country. And now they're in essence being told, hey, you're a liar, you're a malingerer, this didn't happen. And, listen, in real world, maybe there are some people that game the system, but I don't see that. I never see that. So it's kind of disheartening for the
parallels of bankruptcy practice. A lot of people have in their mind a stereotypical, somebody that seeks bankruptcy protection is somebody that, is a deadbeat or didn't pay their bills. And you and I both know the great majority of people that come to us with money problems are good, proud people that had something out of their control happen to them, like a sickness or a job loss. And people should not be ashamed in any way. Good people have bad things happen to them, and certainly our veterans are good people who served our country, and they're entitled to benefits or compensation for injuries they sustained.
Right. Because it is a lot of service, and when you're a service member, it is I said it's 24/7, but it really is 24/7. If you're in the field for 3 weeks, no one's saying, hey, you deserve comp time or you get to take, you're working, you're doing, you're very little sleep. So I don't know. That's just something that kind of drives me nuts, because I really, again, I'm sure there are, I guess you could say there are people that game the system, but I just don't see it, And again, there is some burden of proof. You've got to show, again, current disability related to your service. But, so yeah, so we were going to also talk about discharges. So that is a hurdle. So
let me just be clear. So the hurdle is that you must have received an honorable discharge.
Or general under honorable conditions discharge. And there's some flags that can be on that general. But by and large, if you have an honorable, that you're good to file a claim. Now whether you'll get it and all the stuff we've just talked about, that's a different analysis. But honorable discharge to file the claim, or a general under honorable conditions discharge. So that's kind of like call it a B plus versus an A and an honorable discharge. So then you can file a claim. If you have anything else, for instance, so the discharge scenario is this. honorable, general under honorable conditions, or other than honorable. Other than honorable, it's called or referred to as the acronym OTH. That is an administrative discharge. So when I was a prosecutor, if a commander really wanted a soldier out, they would try to chapter him out. If they didn't have enough for a court martial, they would try to chapter him out and hopefully give the soldier an other than honorable discharge. And that will really hurt someone down the road. It comes up a lot on employment applications. It comes up if you fill out a security clearance application, it'll ask for the characterization of your discharge. And if it's general, if it's an OTH other than honorable, they're going to be asking why. There are two types people hear about: a bad conduct discharge or a dishonorable discharge. Those are two court-martial types of discharges. Bad conduct discharge is it's called a BCD court-martial. That's a 6-month jurisdictional confinement. Dishonorable discharge is awarded at a general court-martial where the sky's the limit on punishment. So those two are an OTH, a BCD, or a DD are killers. You cannot, even if you were to apply for a VA disability, even if you had a current disability related to your service, that will preclude you from getting it if you have those kind of discharge. Now, there are discharge review boards for each service, and there's also the Board of Military Corrections for the service. Under the discharge review board, if you want to try to upgrade your discharge, that's not an easy task. I do tell folks, if you're going to go that route, the folks that I've had the best success ask for a personal hearing, in front of a discharge review board. That's your best shot.
And this is something you can help with, correct, Ron?
I can. And I like to kind of advise on that. Even for that, they don't need a lawyer, but there's a way to kind of button that up. I have a case right now where I have great facts. We've asked for a hearing in Washington, D.C., because I want, my client and his wife in front of the review board with this great set of facts. And I think that's important, Now, whether it'll happen, who knows, but that's your start point. I wouldn't even file the VA claim until you had the discharge upgraded to either honorable or general under honorable conditions.
All right. So if I'm a veteran and I have a service-related injury, but my discharge was less than honorable, the first step is going through the process to correct that discharge.
That's right. You've got to upgrade it to general under honorable conditions or honorable. One thing I hadn't mentioned, and I want to say this in case there are officers listening. So the other type of administrative discharge, or the only type of administrative discharge for an officer, is a dismissal. So people have heard that phrase. So an officer can be dismissed administratively from the service, which, as you can imagine, wouldn't be a good thing on someone's permanent record. But I wanted to mention that.
All right. So the application for disability, for VA disability benefits is denied, and we know that happens a lot. Unfortunately, to people that do have valid service-related injuries and should be compensated, they now need to file an appeal. That's when they come to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's when I'll talk to them, and yeah, so you can kind of start the appeal process. And under this new modernized system, you've got several avenues you can travel, and you can kind of if you continue to file a supplemental claim, there's an argument to be made that you can kind of keep a claim going forever. But eventually you can also appeal the ultimate appeal or quasi-ultimate appeal is to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, which is a federal court in Washington, D.C. that handles nothing but veterans claims. So, if you get there, that means you've kind of lost twice, right? You've lost at this initial level, you've lost at the appeal level, this first level appeal, and now you're at the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. But, I tell veterans, you stick with it. You'll get somewhere, just, keep the ball in the air, keep the claim going, do everything you can to kind of bolster the claim. And again, so I have at our blog, it's bondandbotus.com, BONDANDBOTES.com, as you see on your screen. If you go to our blog, look under our veterans or VA disability tab. So I've got one of the things I wrote not too long ago is the top 10 issues I see in this VA practice. And I talk a lot there about how to improve claims. So if you look there, everything I'm talking about today is there, and that should hopefully be helpful to you.
And I want our viewers to know there's just a wealth of information. Again, the website's on the screen, but specifically go to our blog into veterans issues. Ron has written quite a bit on these topics. And Ron, as you pointed out, you're in Alabama, specifically Coleman, Alabama today, but you handle these cases nationally.
I do.
So if a veteran has been denied benefits anywhere in the country, and they need help, they can contact you and they can reach you either by calling the number on your screen or by going to our website. You can fill out a form there, or you can email Ron directly. Ron, so if a veteran has an impairment that impairs their ability to communicate, some sort of psychological impairment, how can they seek your assistance? Is there a power of attorney, or how would that work if that type veteran needed your assistance?
Yeah, you know what I tell folks, especially in this day and age, I mean, we're all working remotely or trying to, and with email and whatnot. I mean, what I tell veterans, I have a form that I have my veterans fill out because it gives a lot of information I need to know. For instance, your place of birth, got to have that, your date of birth, all that stuff. Kind of the general parameters when you serve, we can kind of talk that over. And then I'll want the most recent denial letter. Hopefully you've kept everything you have from the VA. So what makes it easy on me is you email me my filled out form and then your documents, notably the most recent going back, which should be the denial letter. Then we can kind of figure it out from there. And, one thing I was going to say, Brad, and I had a note on this that I want to mention when you mentioned if someone has some difficulty already. A lot of times people have put in for Social Security disability. So, and kind of like VA, maybe a little faster. Well, it is faster, but not by much. But if you put in for Social Security disability and maybe you're denied and you have to appeal and you win, there's a decision there. A judge, an administrative judge will have issued a decision. Please, please, please use that with your VA disability claim. If it even touches on any of the issues that you are complaining about or that where you feel you have a VA claim, it generally gets referenced in there. And, think about it from the VA's perspective. You're telling them you're disabled. Here you have another administrative jurisdiction, Social Security Administration, saying, hey, you are disabled. That goes a long way. It can be very helpful. Get the entire decision. Now, you may want to get with your VA lawyer, your Social Security lawyer. Hopefully it's got some hook or some touch on, your VA status or that you were VA disabled. But boy, that is helpful.
Well, Ron, the veteran should get a lot better attention from our country and from our government than he or she does currently. This process should be expedited. I know people can work their way through the process most effectively with an experienced attorney like yourselves. What about pro bono, or what type options might be available for somebody that just can't afford a lawyer?
Sure, and if someone just wants help filling out their claim, there are great, here's the secret with VA lawyers. There is so much work out there. Believe me, even if I had a bunch of competitors, I couldn't keep up. There's so much to do. So it's not like I'm sitting here trying to hoard it. There are a bunch of good veteran service organizations that help veterans. And the thing I do like about those folks, that's all they do. They know their stuff. Now, they may not be able to go to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims unless they're a licensed attorney admitted to court, but that's a long way down the road. So there are a bunch, I would just look up, they're called VSOs, is the acronym, Veteran Service Organizations, a bunch of great ones. And there are a number of folks that do pro bono work. Especially that. So I'm involved in a couple of organizations that help homeless veterans. I mean, like I said, that's kind of my passion, or, I always tell folks, right, but for the grace of God is how I feel about that. But,
Absolutely.
But there are, there are a bunch of organizations that help folks. But if you start with the VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations, you should get some help. And those folks where I don't help with their initial claim. I just don't have time to do that. And I think I've told folks enough, and it's out there at our blog post or our blog site under the Veterans tab of how to do it. Just make sure the claim is buttoned up going in, and expect service connection that, yes, you have a current disability, but we, the VA, don't think it's related to your service. Expect that to be your hurdle.
To our viewers, you may be a veteran. Certainly reach out if we can assist you with the appeal of a claim that's denied or any of the other issues that Ron has discussed. If you know a veteran, if you know somebody that could benefit from what you've heard today, please remember that all of our Facebook Live episodes are housed both on our Facebook page and on our firm's website under videos. So you may have heard something today that a friend or acquaintance who's a veteran might benefit from. Refer them back to our Facebook page or website. And we've had a lot of great episodes. For those of you interested in the new vaccines that are available for COVID, we had an infectious disease specialist last week that shared a great deal of information that's also available. Ron, if somebody has further questions about their rights as a veteran and benefits to which they might be entitled to, what's the best way to contact you?
Sure, Brad. If they just go to our website, there's a place where they can link to email me. Just shoot me an email. Make sure you include of course, your email address, phone number. Kind of tell us a little bit about what's going on. That stays internal to us. We obviously don't share it with anyone. I'll then reach out to you and we can kind of talk and see if there's some way we can help.
It's something we've touched upon, and I shared my own experience with the claim you were able to help my mom make related to my dad's service. Often family members can benefit from the service of a loved one. I know that my mother, even following my father's death, has been entitled to certain benefits as a result of my dad's service. Can you elaborate upon what family members might be entitled to?
Sure. If you're a VA disabled veteran, there are dependent claims depending upon if you're married, or not dependent claims, but there are dependent allowances, so the money gets a little bit better. Claims generally, I mean, if someone appeals a claim and is in the appeal process, there is an allowance for someone to substitute in, whether it's a spouse or a surviving child. But there's a lot of stuff like that out there, and beyond the scope of what we're talking about, of course, educational benefits and that type of thing. But there's a lot of stuff for dependents. One thing you may be talking about, Brett, and I don't know if your dad did this, and I don't even know if they had it then, but what I do tell, and I saw this firsthand from my mother-in-law, our survivor benefit plan, where if you are getting to retirement, you take a little less, but it prolongs that retirement check for your spouse. And boy, it's been a good thing.
Ron, we are getting close to an hour, and I like to keep these episodes under an hour. Any important things that I've missed that you'd like to share with our viewers concerning the rights of veterans or security clearance issues?
Sure. Well, as you know, so we've talked a lot about VA disability, but I've also been doing clearances for many, many years. In a lot of places in our country, we also have a tab at our blog under security clearance. I cover a lot of ground there, and I don't care if it's drugs, alcohol, something else, financial issues. It's a big deal for a lot of places. I mean, if you don't have a clearance, you don't have a job. And even if you had the job and something happens where your clearance is now in jeopardy, you're going to be revoked, the job goes. And because you're not job eligible, you don't even get unemployment. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal here, of course, in DC, California, other places in our country. But so that's something to be aware of. A lot of our veterans also work for the government and or have clearances. So that's also something I'm really passionate about, because I feel like if I wasn't a lawyer in Huntsville, I better have a clearance,
Ron, I wanted to talk about veterans specifically today, but I may invite you back at a future date to talk in more detail about security clearance issues. I know in Huntsville, Alabama, where you live, and in other parts of the country, these are very important issues. And again, folks, Ron Sixtus is one of the top security clearance attorneys in the country. He handles these cases nationally. He's written a book that's available on Amazon about security clearance issues. Wealth of information available, both with veteran-related issues and with security clearance issues. Of course, our offices help people with money problems. Ron and I are both board certified as consumer bankruptcy attorneys, and we know a lot of you are hurting right now. We know a lot of you are having financial problems. I encourage you, reach out for help. Be proactive. Don't wait until the last minute. If you feel like you're going to have money-related issues, it's never too early to reach out and get advice. Often with our bankruptcy clients, they get to us at a point where we could have done a whole lot more good if they'd come to us earlier. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Hey, Brad, one thing about the bankruptcy you had mentioned. So again, our blog, I've lost count, but I think there's probably 2,000 topics there. If you go to our blog in the search bar, just type in your question, whether it's VA, whether it's security clearance, whether it's any aspect of bankruptcy, from, well, I lose my car, how about my house? What's a judgment lien? What if I'm getting sued? There's a ton of information there. And we're big fans of, and that's why we offer this free consult like you see on the screen. Know what your options are. Just know the stuff. And then if you have to do something, we can kind of get involved, but do your research, because, money problems, and as you and I talk about a lot over the years, it's the number one cause of divorce and other, ruinous things. I mean, know what your options are. I mean, money, for instance, security clearances, financial issues are the number one reason why people in our country lose their clearance. And you can file bankruptcy. Now, what you file and why and when is a different analysis for a different day, but don't just sit there and worry and behind, and creditor calls, creditor harassment, collection harassment. I mean, don't let that beat you up. Know what your options are. Just start at our blog and you can kind of work from there.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for sharing all that information. I want to specifically thank our veterans. We owe you better. If you are not receiving benefits to which you're entitled and we can help you, please reach out. Again, Ron Sixtus is one of the top attorneys in the country with respect to these issues. If you know somebody that could benefit from what you've heard today, please refer them back to our Facebook page or to our website. This video will be available there for them. Remember, I know you're proud. And you should be. You've served our country, but if you have an injury that's related to your service, perhaps reach out for your family's benefit. That compensation that you're entitled to can help your family, can help your children. We owe it to you. So please, if you're entitled to compensation, reach out and let us help you if you have problems with those issues. Ron, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for joining us,
Brad.
Today.
Thank you.
And thanks for your friendship. I appreciate you joining us today. To all of our viewers, we're here every Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we look forward to talking to you again next week and in future weeks. Ron, have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
You too, Brad. Thanks for having me.